everybody. I would like to call to order the regular meeting of the Parks and Recreation Commission for Wednesday, December 17th, 2025. May I have the roll call, please?
Chair McGill,
Here.
Vice Chair Lesnar Buxton,
You.
Commissioner Aldana,
Present.
Commissioner Clark, Commissioner Nielsen,
Present.
Commissioner Price,
Present.
Commissioner Ramsey.
Present.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have any changes to the agenda?
No changes.
Okay. Well, actually, we do have the one change.
To move the appointments.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So what we're going to do is the interviews for the IPM, Integrated Pest Management Committee, we will take as many of those as we can straight away.
Chair McGill,
Yeah?
could I suggest that maybe any of the applicants that are in the audience now for any of the committees be interviewed now, and then we split this item to go before item 4, the Street Tree Advisory Committee, and then we return to it as item 6?
Okay. Okay. So we are going to do as many interviews as possible after the consent items, before we go to the advisory committee items, and then whoever isn't here will take in its course. So it looks like we have everybody here that's interviewing for IPM, and we'll just see where we are with trees. That work? Okay.
Yes.
So then that takes us to written public comment. We did receive one letter that was posted actually some time ago, but we got it today. And it is on the drum circles. And I don't know if everybody's had a chance to read it. I guess my question is, what is the follow-up to this in the process? Because it seems like it's not something we want to run out of town.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. I'm following up with the drum circle tomorrow. So,
Okay, okay.
We should have a resolution this week.
Okay, and if it is something that we need to table and have a discussion in a further meeting, then I would like to request that we do that. It seemed like a reasonable letter. Okay, great, thank you. All right, so that takes us to general public comment. Any member of the public may address the commission for up to 2 minutes on any subject within the jurisdiction of the commission that is not scheduled for a public discussion before the commission. The total amount of time for public comment will be 15 minutes. I have one speaker slip, but that's for an agenda item, and we'll get to that when we take your agenda item. I don't have any other speaker slips. Do we have anybody online?
There is no one online.
All right, thank you very much. All right, that takes us to committee reports, and we have a youth council on the agenda, but I do not see anybody from the youth council here.
I've been attending the youth council meetings regularly. They decided to push that report till January.
Okay, great, thank you very much for that. All right, so then we will go straight to the commissioner committee assignment reports, and I'll go ahead and start with Commissioner Aldana.
Nothing to report today.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Nielsen?
Yeah, just to expand on that, they've got some good news they'll bring us in January about their toy drive and other activities and the vacancies they've been filling as moving together as a new committee.
Great, thank you. Vice Chair Lesnar Buxton?
Nothing to report today.
Okay, Commissioner Clark?
I attended the Street Tree Advisory Committee meeting, and we'll discuss all the items we discussed at that meeting today.
Okay, thanks. Commissioner Ramsey?
Nothing to report today.
Commissioner Price?
Nothing to report.
All right, and we did have a Park Foundation meeting last week. We approved funds to plant a bunch of roses in the rose garden, which will be very nice, and then also just progress the discussions on the band shell performances that, and furthering the grant that we got. So that's that. All right, then that takes us to commission and staff communications. Anything to report?
Nothing to report.
Okay, and then that takes us to ceremonial items, and I understand we have a couple of employee recognitions.
Yes, Chair and Commissioners, we have 2 employees that have received service pins or service awards in the last month, starting with Patrick Wiley, a senior grounds maintenance worker with 5 years of service in the Parks Division. Patrick was hired on with the Forestry Division in 2013 and returned to work in returned to work in the Parks Maintenance aspect of our Parks Division in 2019 as an hourly. He was hired as a full-time grounds maintenance worker 1 in June 2020 and was promoted to a senior grounds maintenance worker in December 2021. Patrick has had a chance to work with many of our crews, and he currently is assigned to the downtown crew. So he has some of our most iconic parks, including Alice Keck, Ortega, Hilda Ray, Escondido, and the Mission Rose Garden. And then I'd like to also recognize Jose Luis Rojas, who's an equipment operator with the Parks Division, who has 25 years of service with our department. He joined in September 1998 as an hourly grounds maintenance assistant at the municipal golf course. He was recognized for his great work and advanced in 2000 to be a full-time grounds maintenance worker 2, and in 2015 he transitioned over to the equipment operations portion of our park maintenance program. So in that role, Jose touches many of our parks and does really important work with our large-scale equipment, beach grooming equipment, turf field equipment. So in the recent past, he's been able to do several large restorations, including restorations at Shoreline Park, Ledbetter, and Oak Park. So please join me in celebrating these 2 employees.
All right, well, thank you very much, Patrick and Jose. Congratulations to both. 5 years that's a career in itself, but 25 years, that's a lot of history and a lot of understanding of how our parks work. So congratulations and thank you. All right, moving to summary of council actions. Looks straightforward unless there's any questions or comments from anybody. Move from that, and then it takes us to the minutes, with the recommendation being that the commission waive the reading and approve the minutes of the regular meeting of November 19th, 2025. I'm sorry, there's a typo in there. That's why I was like, wait a minute. So do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion to waive it.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second.
Okay, great. I'm assuming there are no questions. We'll go ahead and go to a vote on that one. Okay. All right. What did you say? Have we looked at the vote? Oh, God. Okay, I was busy trying to find the right pages. Okay. It's December, guys. All right. So for those of you who just come in, we are going to go ahead and do the committee interviews and appointments as far as we are able. Right now, I don't see anybody from the golf committee yet. So, and I know we've got a bit of a time constraint on the IPM, so we're going to start with IPM. And then it looks like we've got everybody here for STAC. So we can do IPM and STAC, and then we'll move into the trees. So the first person, that's a golf. Hold on. Okay. So we're going to start with IPM, and the first person, can I go in order, or are you really constrained? Okay, first person we're going to have is Greg Chittick.
Thank you,
No.
Chair. Commission members, I just want to say thank you for the work that your commission has done, particularly staff as well, and of course, the city council in supporting this IPM program. It's been around for 20-something years, and I think it's one of the best programs we've got in Santa Barbara. Really done a lot of amazing stuff. I've been on it that entire time, and I enjoy it. It's nice working with staff. They're great to work with, and commissioners as well. And so my background is engineering and hazardous materials, and I have a consulting firm that does that with a lot of different groups. So I'd like to continue doing the work.
Thank you.
Thanks. Any questions?
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Sheddick? All right. And Valerie Halverson, you are next. Welcome and thank you for applying.
You're very welcome.
And I think you're going to start clocking down, so go ahead.
Well, I am here initially as a referral by my friend Barbara Silver, who's been involved with this organization for a number of years. I am a lifelong gardener, past president of the Santa Barbara Horticultural Society, lifelong gardener, 28-year veteran docent at Lotus Land. So plants and parks and the out of doors are my thing. And of course, I've watched the wonderful progress at the insectary garden at Lotus Land and seen all the value in the research and the work that we have done there. I would be interested in being of assistance to the city in this way. I've been a resident for 44 years, and I moved here from Michigan, so I have been in love with Santa Barbara for 44 years. I would just like to contribute.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I would have to say, assuming that you join this group, that you will find them to be an extremely constructive and dedicated group of volunteers that really do a great job. And on that note, Kristen Labonte.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. Kristen Labonte, I've been on the committee for 19 years now. I also work at UC Santa Barbara Library, where I'm the Interim Director of Research and Engagement. And I've found it to be an amazing committee. I love working with staff. I love working with the committee. I think that we've been able to do a lot of really good work in the city to reduce the amount of pesticides used in our environment. And my background also includes managing the greenhouse and garden project at UC Santa Barbara since about 1996. And so it's an organic community garden. So thank you, and I hope to continue to serve.
Thank you. And finally, Keith, unless anybody has any questions. Sorry, I'm rattling through this, but Keith Nevison.
Thanks all. I'm Keith Nevison. This would be the second, I guess, a reappointment for me on the IPM committee. I work at the Santa Barbara Botanic Garden. I serve as Director of Horticulture and Operations. Love it. Love Santa Barbara. I'd suggest maybe even changing your banner for some native plants. We recently did a project downtown Santa Barbara on the 1200 block of State Street. The garden has been really excited to partner with the city and get more involved. Of course, we're very proud of our legacy. We're going to be turning 100 next year in March, and so there's a lot that's planned for us with our centennial celebration. And I represent the kind of beautification and operations there at the garden. I've been happy to serve on the IPM committee. It's great. It's a great group of people who are very passionate. I have extensive background as well in both integrated pest management and proper use of chemicals, and so I take the position really responsibly, and I'm happy to continue to serve.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Thank you. Can we just do a motion to appoint all four in one fell swoop? Is everybody okay if I make the motion? All right, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion that we reappoint Greg Chidick, appoint Valerie Halverson, reappoint Kristen Labonte, and reappoint Keith Nevison to their positions on the Integrated Pest Management Committee.
I'll second.
that. Oh,
Okay, second by acclamation. Can we go ahead and have a vote? There we go. All right, congratulations, everybody. Look forward to seeing you again for the next couple of years. And welcome. All right. Next, we're going to go, to the trees. Does somebody have, I don't seem to have Maury's application. I know I had it before. Maybe it's in here. Ah, okay. Nope, I just didn't pull a sheet out of the page. All right. So we're going to go ahead and start with Duke McPherson.
Hi, I'm Duke McPherson. I've been on the STAC committee for quite a while now, maybe 10 years. I seem to live trees, and this fits right in with this concern and consideration. So I'd love to be on the crew for another 2 years. I have wonderful people working with me on the committee. And so there you are. Hope you'll vote for me. Thanks a lot.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. McPherson?
None.
All right, Bruce Reed.
I'm Bruce Reed. I actually have lost track of how long I've served on the committee, so.
2016.
Okay.
Is what you put in your form.
And I'm kind of a plantsman by trade, nurseryman and former arborist, and have gotten a lot of pleasure and feel honored to be on the committee. So thanks very much.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Reed? All right, finally, Maury Trebon. Come on up.
Good afternoon, commissioners and Kathy McGill. More than a commissioner, just being cheesy. I have been on the Street Tree Advisory Committee for so long that I can't remember what year, how long it's been. It is a time expenditure I value highly. It seems that the decisions we make last for years and years. We're very careful about when we make them. And we have a really well-informed and well-educated group of professionals to advise the city on street tree advisory. Anything else you need to know from me? I have education in horticulture. I've taught horticulture at City College.
Anybody have any questions?
I'm sorry?
Nope, I'm just looking to see if looks like anybody has any questions. I think we're at a no questions.
Thank you very much for allowing me to serve again. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Would somebody like to make a motion for appointment? No. Okay, thanks, Nicole. Yeah, we're going to do it. Well, let's do all three again like we did the last one.
Yeah, I would like to make a motion to reappoint Duke McPherson, Maury Tremont, and Bruce Reed to the Street Tree Advisory Committee.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second, so shall we go ahead and take a vote?
And also thank them for their excellent service. Years of it altogether. 50 altogether.
What was that?
I wonder how many years that they've served altogether.
Oh, well, since Maury says she doesn't know, we can't know the sums. All right. Oh, it's me, sorry. Oh, no, and, yeah, and Nate and Jacob as well. Did everybody lock their vote? No? Okay. Are we good? Okay. Yeah, we are professionals. All right, thank you very much. Congratulations. Welcome back. Thanks. All right, and we are taking as many of the advisory interviews as possible before we do the trees. So we are, is that Joanne? Okay, so we've got one of the Golf Advisory Committee members here, so we'll go ahead and take it as Joanne Payne, which is the vacancy of the LPGA Amateur Golf Association member.
Okay, so my name is Joanne Payne, and I am here to reapply to continue with the Golf Advisory Committee. I've been a resident in Santa Barbara for 26 years, and I'm an avid golfer for 25 of those years. And I feel very connected to the women's golfing community, belong to at least 4 local women golf associations, but my heart is very centered on the LPGA Amateurs Santa Barbara chapter, which I'm a president of and going into my second 2-year term. Santa Barbara Golf Course is our home course, and we play there at least once a month, and we have other tournaments interspersed throughout the year. So we feel very connected to the Santa Barbara Golf Club. And I've served on the Golf Advisory Committee now for since the beginning of 2018, which is coming into 9 years. And I feel very committed, and I love the changes that we've seen happen because we've recommended things, and it's just wonderful to see them come to fruition. So I feel like I'd love to continue and contribute. I feel like I can contribute a lot to the Santa Barbara Golf Club and to our members and to the golfers both on and off the course. So I'd like to reply.
All right, thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, Joanne, thanks for your tenure. You just mentioned some changes that you've made and they've come to fruition. Just curious, could you name 1 or 2?
Ooh, well, there's some things that are going to be announced that we've been recommending. Just things on the course that we've suggested. I don't really I've seen many things, you know, the greens have been improved, areas that have been like really bad areas, and they've really developed them and changed them so that, you know, they're less dangerous. You know, we have various parts of the course that people can fall on, but we've actually done lots of things to get those repaired. We're going to be seeing some new changes because we're applying for grants for things. And just generally, there's one thing that I have been voting for, and I know it will go through before I leave this world, but I want to see a water fountain, and it's on the, I desperately want to see that happen, so rather than us having to go and get water in bathrooms or at Mulligan's, so that we can just, at the 10th hole, so I'm putting in. But no, it's just a lot of things that we all like have our little things that we want to see happen, and that comes out of the fund that $1 of every player goes into a fund called the Players Improvement Fund, and it's just wonderful to know that when you're playing, you're contributing to the golf course, and that comes back to us.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I'm pulling for you to get that water fountain at the turn.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
I need to stay here.
Yeah, that's quite all right.
Okay.
And I'm assuming that unless there's any other questions. Thanks. All right, so can we have one applicant for this position. May we have a motion
I'd like to make the motion
to?
to accept her, to bring her, to have her rejoin the committee.
All right, we have a motion.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to reappoint Joanne Payne. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, and thank you for your time. All right, and then if we get a second now to get paperwork back in order. All right. Welcome, Mr. Slack. We will move to the trees and start with Flora Vista.
Good afternoon, Chair McGill and Commissioners. The first Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation for review is a request to remove an evergreen ash. This is located within the front setback of the property at 905 Flora Vista Drive. On the application, the applicant listed a couple reasons for removal. It had to do with like previous water disruptions and also hardscape damage, specifically in the driveway, making mobility difficult for the property owner. It's important to note that they also did express a desire or a willingness to plant a replacement tree if approved. The committee reviewed the tree. It was noted to be in fair health. If you were able to make a site visit, there were some old, large pruning wounds indicating that it had been pretty aggressively pruned in previous years, probably several years ago. In looking at the specific issues that were listed by the applicant, they were essentially inconclusive. The tree certainly could have been a contributing factor to water service disruptions. There weren't any evidence or photographs or anything to suggest further than just the speculation that it did disrupt it. Looking at the hardscape, the committee noted that a lot of the disruptions actually appeared to be settling. The downspout from the rain gutters went right into the driveway, which can be terribly problematic for concrete in the long term. So again, it was really kind of inconclusive if that was purely the cause of the disruption. Again, it could have been a contributing factor. So inconclusive evidence, I think, in both of the points brought up by the applicant for the removal. However, the committee then kind of discussed the tree, the species of tree, and sort of its overall value as a amenity to the property and the street. The evergreen ash is something that we've seen over previous years be recommended by the Street Tree Advisory Committee for removal, and it revolves around what we would call its like weedy nature. So it has a tendency to germinate readily on its own and is seen as problematic from certain people in the horticultural profession, and is listed as, invasive, depending on where you're looking for information in terms of references. The seed is it's spread by wind, so it's like a samara, kind of looks like what you would see on a maple tree, if you're familiar with maple trees. So it can travel, and it does, like mentioned, germinate readily. We counted 6 seedlings on the property within probably a 15-foot radius, kind of further illustrating what they're capable of. And I think similar to like blue gum eucalyptus, the committee has a certain opinion, I think collectively with this species. It's a different reason, but it's similar to blue gum eucalyptus. So in reviewing the sort of value of the tree, the condition of the tree, and then the weedy nature of the tree to the property and surrounding properties, in addition to the applicant's willingness to plant a new tree, it was the majority opinion of the committee that allowing or recommending removal of the tree and replacing with a different species made practical sense. And after review, they made a recommendation to approve the removal of the tree on the condition that a new tree be planted that can achieve 25 feet in height at maturity, and that the commission could use the finding that the principles of good forest management support the removal of the evergreen ash at 905 Flora Vista Drive.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to open it to questions, and we have Commissioner Price.
Thank you very much for that recap. A couple questions. First of all, you mentioned it's seen as invasive. Is it an invasive species to the region?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Price, I think, again, it kind of depends on like what you're using as references. I think, anecdotally from like staff's perspective and the committee's perspective, it is seen as that. I think if you ask Mr. Nevison from the Botanic Garden, he would share the same opinion. It's not listed on the California Invasive Plant Council's website, but then there were references to it being listed as invasive on other websites. So I think it's conclusive, and it's safe to say that it does spread in this community more readily than other trees. And I think even in some cases, trees that are often considered to be invasive don't have the invasive tendencies that this species does.
Interesting. Yeah, just for the rest of the committee, I think it'd be interesting to include maybe a native designation here, if in the event that we do motion for the replacement. Secondly, it was mentioned in here that it was a 4-1 decision. Can you discuss a little bit about what the dissenting opinion was?
And Chair McGill, Commissioner Price, essentially there was seen to be value left in the retention of the tree versus, kind of swapping it out. It was really just as simple as that.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Nielsen.
Mr. Slack, was there any in-depth discussion about the choice of 25 feet? I know that's a very common height that we propose for replacement trees. Based off the perspective of this picture, and I wasn't able to visit the tree, it looks like it's significantly taller than 25 feet to me, and it's a very mature tree that we'd be deciding to take out. Was there any discussion over the age, maturity, and height of this tree compared to the replacement tree? And it doesn't look like on the application that any target species has been identified for the replacement. Was there any discussion around that?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Nielsen, this tree is probably under 25 feet, actually. And everybody gets heights wrong anyway, so even if you thought it was probably 25, it's probably less than that. I think when you look at the spatial constraints of the yard, it's not a big front yard, so it really doesn't, it's hard to imagine a much larger tree there than, say, a 25-foot tree, which is usually probably going to have like a very similar like canopy spread. And then I don't think it's like significantly old where there's, significant value or consideration in terms of the age of the tree as well. And then I think consistent with like reviews for years, the committee has always made recommendations that are very neutral in terms of like species and just using that benchmark height as a way to offset, the sort of the loss of biomass.
And we haven't heard anything from the applicant about their desired species in this, just their willingness to replace.
Chair McGill, Commissioner Nielsen, that's correct.
And then lastly, if you would like to provide any historical context on this Principles of Good Forest Management recommendation, when we have a fairly healthy and mature tree, if there's other relevant facts about how this finding may be pertinent to what we're deciding today.
Chair McGill, Commissioner Nielsen, I think, these are pretty old findings and they're sort of oblique, so there's a lot of ways of looking at it. I think from the committee's perspective in terms of this specific species, they see it as problematic to the community in the urban forest, and the removal of the species makes practical sense and as a benefit to not the continued spread of the species in areas where you may not want it.
So just a little bit of context for the 3 members of the commission who were not here a couple years ago. When they talk about precedent, this is probably a stronger precedent for removal than I've seen for almost any trees that I can think of in the last 8 years. There's one instance a couple years ago where the request was to remove evergreen ash. I wasn't actually part of the decision, I was recused. But the actual stack committee recommendation was not only to approve the removal of the requested tree, but every other evergreen ash in the front yard. So, that's the strength. So it was, not only do we think you should get rid of your setback tree, but you've got 3 street trees that are evergreen ashes, and we want those to go too. That was actually the decision. So that's the strength of, I'm going to say, feeling about this tree in terms of its invasiveness. Am I misstating that at all?
Chair McGill, Commissioners, I think that's correct. There were several applications that we saw in a very short duration for this species of tree, and in all cases there was either unanimous or majority decision supporting the removal of the species.
Yeah. Commissioner Nielsen.
I guess I'll direct this towards Mr. Slack because we're still in questions for him, but I'm also curious to hear from the rest of the commission if they have input on it afterwards. Is for someone who this is not their background and their strength, it seems like a tree that is good at proliferating and propagating and can be a positive thing in a community. So can you nuance for me a little bit more the invasive, and is there something that makes this tree inherently bad, like it's a safety risk, or there's something that fundamentally makes this species something we don't want in our community as much compared to others that we'd be happy if it propagated well?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Nielsen, I think, when you look at trees that germinate readily that aren't from here, you start to look at their ability to displace, especially like native plant communities, which you do see this if you walk in areas. Like a good example is throughout Hidden Valley Park or like the Arroyo Burrow open space. You'll see it there. It's a very like shade tolerant tree, so it can sit really small for long periods of time, and then it kind of explodes in growth, and it's a huge tree over years. So I think that's the kind of displacement that is seen as problematic with like this type of tree. I think we're fortunate to live in an environment where you're able to sort of manage and pick and choose what's good and what's not good. I think that there's certainly an argument to be made for something that is tough, and that's something that we look at with street trees too. But similar to the ash, there's the Chinese flame tree, which we used to use prolifically as a street tree, and we're seeing it do the exact same thing everywhere, to the point where we're no longer suggesting the use of that tree, even though in other places where it may not be so easily spread, it can be a really valuable tree. And I think that's true of probably most trees that we look at. It's very regionally specific in regards to whether they're problematic or not as well.
And do you see that displacement concern to be a fairly localized event in the sense that like this parcel, this property, if there were neighboring trees or trees close by, then we would have that concern, but if there's nothing it's going to compete with or displace, we maybe wouldn't care about that factor as much? Or is it a fairly universally true circumstance?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Nielsen, I think you would look at, I don't know the answer to this specifically, but it's wind dispersed seed, so it travels far, and then those seeds germinate at some percentage, then there's more trees, and then they seed, and then there's more wind dispersed seeds. So it's less about this yard and the street, and I think the collective population of those trees and their ability to kind of keep reproducing and being successful. And these things can take considerable years before you see problems. And I think it's not really an urban problem, but right there's Elings, and there's critical open spaces and Douglas Family Preserve over there in certain areas, and I think that that's sort of the rationale. And then I think just to some extent, to a lesser extent too, the committee sees a little bit of flexibility and a willingness to allow certain trees from properties to be removed because they're considered less than desirable from their collective perspective.
Thank you, Mr. Slack.
And Mr. Price.
I was kind of struck by your statement, Chair, about how previously when one of these was removed, the request was to remove all of them in the front yard. And what kind of came to my mind was, if the idea is that this is an invasive species and there are several saplings there, at what point does a sapling become a tree? And is it within our purview to request that all the saplings be removed as well?
4 inches and 10 feet.
Yeah, Chair McGill, Commissioner Price, that's a good question. So for the purposes of regulation, it's 4 inches when measured at the standard height, which is 4.5 feet above grade. So if it was bigger than that, it would be a regulated species based on the Muni Code. But if it was smaller than 4 inches when measured at 4.5 feet above grade, it would be, the homeowner could take it out without needing to get a permit.
Okay, we don't have any speaker slips, and do we have anybody online? Just,
There is no one online.
okay, I just wanted to clarify that, so we really are at the point where we can go into discussion and further questions if there are any. I guess from my point of view, it really highlights the importance of understanding precedent. If the decisions made a couple of years ago are important factors in this decision, and I'm not saying those were bad decisions, I am saying that is, precedent has become, it has a role to play and it has to be carefully considered. Commissioner Ramsey.
Great, just to kind of speak out loud and let everyone know what I'm thinking. I heard some words that Mr. Slack used that you don't hear often, which is speculation and inconclusive about property damage to this house. And when I'm looking at this tree, I don't like creating a precedent that just because it's invasive, you know, that big scary word, that means we should replace it with something new, because we learn over time that things change, and yeah, we make mistakes. But I'm reading in this book right now, Trees of Santa Barbara, published in 1974, that this is a native to central Mexico tree. So it's not like it's from Europe or Africa that's disrupting everything. It's a tree from the continent, and it's been planted all over town in Franceschi Park, for example, in 1948. So I might be that one outlier here, like it was a 4-to-1 vote. I'm leaning towards nay, just because I don't want to cut down a healthy tree because it spreads its seed too well. You know, you look up at the mountains and there aren't really any trees out there because of the forest fire. So personally, I don't see it as a risk. I see it as an opportunity to kind of develop that forest that we are missing up on the mountains these days. That's my 2 cents.
Can you speak a little bit to the comment that it's in fair health and the impact of the pruning wounds? And really where I'm going, the reason I'm asking the question is thinking about forest management, and is there an opportunity to upgrade the forest by replacing the tree and that's not really a forest in that street, but upgrade the landscape, or whatever you want to call it, with a healthier tree that will do better and be better overall for the community. And I was just really thinking about the health of the tree and the pruning.
Chairman Gill, Commissioners, I don't think that the pruning it's not really like detrimental. It's not good. The tree's recovered. It has leaves, so it's, you know, it's grown back. And I would say it's in mediocre health. It's not a thriving evergreen ash. I don't think that's like not really a big factor in the committee's recommendation. I just think that they see a win in removal and replacement of the species. It really just came down to that. It would be similar to last month's review, or 2 months ago, when the committee recommended the removal of the small New Zealand Christmas tree in their front yard in the San Roque neighborhood, and then the commission saw it differently.
Yep. All right. I'll say, well, I'm kind of inclined to support this one, just simply because I think a better tree can go there, and it is a suburban neighborhood. But I understand, and I wanted to have this conversation because these are conversations that happened a couple of years ago that are impacting decisions that are being made today, potentially. Commissioner Price.
Thank you. This has actually been a fantastic conversation. I've learned a lot about our kind of thought process as we've been approaching this tree. I'm not making a motion. I just want to make that very clear. But kind of where my mind is, first of all, thank you very much for speaking your piece. It gave me a lot of pause. But where kind of my mind is that quite conditionally, it would be replaced with a native species. All the saplings would be removed, and then 25 feet minimum at maturity. And I'm not looking for any feedback. I just kind of want to let the commission know what I'm thinking.
Commissioner Nielsen.
Mr. Slack, are there any species, or does this provide any habitat value that is unique to this evergreen ash?
And Chairman Gill, Commissioner Nielsen, that's a really complicated answer, and I don't know that I have it. I'm sure there's critters that do live in that tree, and maybe some bugs, you know.
You're getting very technical on us.
Yeah,
it's as far as we know, there's not like
I think
species that wholly rely on this type of tree that we care about.
You would, to say that there's not habitat in that tree, I think you would be silly. Is it comparable to like the native coast live oak that's like a keystone species that supports like up to 500 different species? No, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't provide habitat.
But as far as we know, a replacement tree would serve the same function for habitat.
Likely, yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Clark.
I had a question for Mr. Slack, sorry, called you Snack. It's been a long day. In my 10 years on the commission, I don't recall ever requiring that a tree be replaced with a native species. Am I incorrect? Is my memory wrong?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Clark, I believe you are correct. I think it's always been just that benchmark to some type of height, and it gives a lot of latitude to the property owner, you know, to choose something that they find desirable.
And Commissioner Ramsey.
So off that point, you know, we take it down and it's up to the applicant to replace it. I mean, that's no guarantee that they replace it with something that is natural, and, you know, we could fall in a situation where, you know, theoretically it could be a worse option. And we're right back here.
Do you want to comment on that, Mr. Slack? It seems sort of rhetorical, but yeah. Yep, okay. Commissioner Nielsen. And
I guess this one didn't seem straightforward or obvious to me. It seems like a healthy, mature tree, and again, the inconclusive nature of the application. I kind of wish that the application came through with us with more of what we're hearing from Mr. Slack today, which has been pretty compelling to me. And then as far as the process for replacing a tree, I think that staff gets to direct and manage that decision, and we, you know, kind of give them that authority. I'm wondering if, Commissioner Clark, if you got to witness this discussion firsthand, if there's anything that jumped out to you about the in-person observations of the tree or the discussion that we haven't touched on yet.
For this particular stack meeting, I attended the first couple of trees, but I wasn't able to be at this one. I had some kind of crisis.
okay, Commissioner Aldana.
As far as the tree, can we just be a little more specific on what replacement tree? So then this way there won't be an issue as far as the new tree grows.
Chair McGill, Commissioner Aldana, I think it's best to not, and I think that historically we've just not done so, and I think that there's a flexibility if, you know, when the commission approves a removal and grants, you know, the applicant to remove the tree and then they replace it, I think that it's really kind of just nice to be able to have a participatory role in the selection of the tree as a property owner. You know, I mean, I think part of the reason why we sit here and we talk about these things in great detail is because they're generational decisions. And so I think given the property owner the latitude to maybe choose what that tree is going to be for part or all of their lives potentially is a really like unique and valuable component. So I would just advise against that.
So I'm going to support what you just said. I just think it's a slippery slope. And, you know, we haven't done it, and certainly in the entire time I've been on the commission, and in the time you've been on the commission, you guys are further along in your terms than I am. And, you know, I see a real distinction between street trees and setback trees. I mean, fundamentally, we're well within the property line of these trees, and it's, you know, arguably you could say it's a pretty heavy-handed approach to be even approving or denying a removal that's 20, 25 feet in from the line, but that's how the city works, and that's fine. But I think that I strongly agree there needs to be flexibility. Now, I think we could say something like, you know, we recommend consulting with the Urban Forest Department on appropriate species, but I think we are treading a slippery slope if we actually start mandating species on setback trees. Commissioner Aldana.
If there's no further discussion, I would like to go ahead and make a motion and agree with the Street Tree Committee to approve the removal on the condition that the applicant plant a new tree that can achieve 25 feet of height in maturity. And the finding principle of good forest management.
And I'm going to go ahead and second that motion because I think we are at the point where we need to see where we are because we've kind of talked through all the issues.
Are we still able to make a recommendation?
That was a motion. Yeah.
We could still have discussion.
I mean, we can, yes.
I'm making this very complicated, never mind.
Okay. Are we there? All right, let's see where we are. Well, we're going the way of Stack. We don't agree. Oh, I mean, we agree, but we're definitely of mixed mind. All right. I think it passed 4-3. Thank you, and thank you for, working through this. This is complex because of the history of this particular species. All right, I think that takes us to Mission Ridge.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, the next Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation for review is to remove a large river red gum located at the property at 1940 Mission Ridge Road. The applicant listed a few reasons on the application for the removal, and those revolved around property damage, specifically to the wall that's directly behind the tree, safety concerns as it relates to limb or tree failure, explaining, concern just with impacting the roadway. The tree is of pretty significant height and does actually have the potential to impact the structure below the property as well. And then also fire concerns were noted. The committee reviewed the tree. It was also found to be in fair health. It had been well maintained over the years. There was pretty extensive on-site discussion. I think as it relates to the property damage, it was consensus of the committee that the wall could probably be repaired or rerouted. There was some type of strategy that could mitigate the existing damage to the wall, not require removal of the tree. I think we talked about the fire concerns. I think this is a fire-sensitive area for sure, but the tree is well maintained and there's no fuel ladder, so it really doesn't rise to like a fire concern as it relates to what we would consider a true like fire hazard scenario. So it kind of all revolved around the risk. We were on site for a really long time. There was a lot of discussion about the tree, the size of the tree, and its sort of like the risk associated with the tree and the risk to the property owner by retention of the tree. This also was not an easy one. There was, the majority of the committee did see that there was significant risk with the tree. I think to some extent, I'm less of a staunch defender of the genus Eucalyptus, but I still will defend it because there's hundreds of them that are good. This isn't a blue gum. We have seen instances in the last few years where large blue gums were approved next to roadways, kind of stating similar concerns. And while this isn't a direct evacuation route, it's immediately adjacent to one, and I think people are sensitive about, just exiting APS in the event of like large storms or fires. And again, this tree's not gonna catch on fire or be like a huge fire concern, but in the event of a lot of stuff going on, if the tree failed, obviously it's impacting the roadway, which they did see as a pretty significant concern. And so that was discussed at length. Ultimately, after review, the majority, it was a 3-2 vote, the committee did recommend to approve the removal of the river red gum and condition that a new tree be planted on the property that could achieve 30 feet in height at maturity. Also used the principles of good forest management as a finding that the commission could use to support the decision.
Okay, and we're going to start with Nielsen, then Price.
The condition for this is that the replacement tree would get planted on the property, which is, it doesn't seem to imply that it's necessarily the setback. Was there any discussion about location of the replacement tree that the committee wanted to condition?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Nielsen, if you're able to visit the property, the front yard is like heavily landscaped and it's a very sort of like formal, like English garden or something. So there's not a lot of plantable space like in the setback, which we would consider more so on the other side of the wall. And then there's a couple trees sort of immediately adjacent to the river red gum, so the site's pretty constrained. So if you look at, if it was going to have to be in a place, it would have to be basically in the exact same spot, which really wouldn't be a viable planting location. So they saw a need for more flexibility and didn't specify where the tree would be planted.
Thank you.
Commissioner Price.
Thank you. The application seems to imply that the tree is in not very good health. Did you see the same thing? I mean, it seemed to be in fine health when I saw it.
Chair McGill, Commissioner Price, I think, there's varying levels of health assessment, I think. From the committee's perspective, I think that it was not, it's certainly not dead. We'd probably lump it into the fair category, so not, a thriving picture of health, but also kind of right there in the middle. I don't think that, and for the purposes of recapping their review, that wasn't a factor in the recommendation. So I don't think that that was really a concern for the committee, the health of the tree.
So I was kind of struggling when I looked at this one, when I went up on the site. Can you talk a little bit more about the difference between red gums and blue gums and the risk of failure? And the reason I'm asking the question is that just on the surface of it, I look at the lean, I look at the outreach of the branches, and it just, for lack of a better way of saying it, it doesn't look like the kind of structure and doesn't look like something we would normally approve for removal based on what the branch structure is and the trunk leaning. And so I'm just curious to know more about what the thinking was there and how that relates to it being a red gum versus a blue gum versus whatever.
Chair McGill, Commissioners, for the purposes of the committee's review, I don't want to use the term superficial, but it's like from the periphery, they're looking at the tree, so it's not some type of like deep dive into, the health or the structure of the tree, which, so I think, there's not enough time spent to say whether there were glaring issues or not. The problem with the eucalyptus around here that we have, some of it's the size, the bigger the tree, there's like more just force exerted and there's more loading from wind. A 10-foot tree isn't gonna fall over nearly as fast as like a 100-foot tree if it's, experiencing heavy winds. So there's a lot of other factors in there. And then I think part of the reason why blue gum is vilified is they tend to be in areas where they're not maintained. So they're just left to kind of just grow on their own. And then all the eucalyptus are susceptible to like a pathogen, a fungal pathogen. It's like a brown cubicle rot called chicken of the woods commonly, or like Laetiparus. And that's usually what degrades the quality of the stem, where you see like the whole tree fall over. So it's like you have these fungal related issues where you've lost significant, below ground strength and anchorage, and then you have these massively tall trees that have like tons of what we would call like lever arm, sort of like a cantilever on a building. It's like you can only extend so far before that thing collapses. And that's sort of what happens in these storm events when the tree's being loaded horizontally by wind. And we didn't see any evidence of that at the time, but you have to see it when it's fruiting, in order to see it. So there's a lot of like nuanced things that, the committee just doesn't do on site because they're there for maybe 20, 30 minutes. But I think, going back to the recommendation from the majority of them, similar to what you're saying, the size and the scale, the lean, the age, those were just enough of a factor, as well as like the potential risk to other person's property to, for them to make the recommendation to support the removal.
Okay, thanks. How tall is that tree, do you think?
Taller than 25 feet?
I knew you were going to say that.
It's probably 100 foot tall. I mean, it's
Okay.
probably pretty darn close. It's definitely north of 80, from the base of the tree. So I don't know.
So, yeah, and the reason I'm asking is just kind of get a sense of it, and also when you're talking about a condition of a 30-foot tree, you're talking about a significantly smaller tree going in there. Yeah, okay. Commissioner Nielsen.
Mr. Slack, you mentioned the lean of the tree, which doesn't appear obvious to me from the photos. I wasn't able to do a site visit on this one. Can we speak to more if it has a true lean? It seems like a very well-maintained tree for what it is, very upright from what I can tell. Is there something that's not showing through in the images?
It has a lean. It's not as pronounced as many others that we've looked at.
Towards the street?
Yeah,
Towards
it does.
the parallel?
It does, but it's not like, and it doesn't have a big branch jutting or anything like that, but it does have a lean. Anyways, go ahead. Yeah.
Chairman Gill, Commissioner Nielsen, I would concur with Chair McGill. It does have a subtle lean towards the street. It's not overly dramatic, but it does lean in that direction. This picture is taken from down slope, towards the trees, so you can't really gauge that, but on site, it definitely does lean towards the street subtly.
But it's not one that you drive up to and go, ooh, my.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm going to go to public comment, unless anybody has a... All right, we have one speaker slip, and it is Wilhelmina Barker, who lives at that address.
Not working. Hello, hi. I'm Wilma Barker, and I am the owner of the house on 1940 Mission Ridge. I just wanted to say that I support whatever the or what the committee recommended, and we are happy to plant another tree. I personally like to get a native tree, and well, I think it is probably not going to go on the same spot because it's going to be really hard to grind the stump as well because of the wall. I've been told by the tree company that we already had out to give us a quote. And unless we take the wall away, we can't grind the stump. So, and then I do think it is a dangerous place to plant another tree on that slope, because there's definitely a slope. But we're happy to replace or to plant another tree in somewhere else on the property. And if you have any questions, then I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Ms. Barker, I have a question for you. Just out of curiosity, I mean, you cite a couple things here of why you want to get rid of it, but why do you want to get rid of this tree?
Well, there are several reasons, but I think to agree with the committee, the safety is one of our biggest concerns, especially in the winter with the winter storms. I'm really scared that tree is going to go down, and it's probably not going to fall down on the house. If it does, it will fall on my bedroom. It's right there. It will probably fall to the other side, which is the tree, and then it is the neighbor on the other side, which is the Alencanto Hotel. And I'm sure they're not going to be too happy about that. So that is the main reason. Smaller reason or concern is, well, the wall is damaged, but we can repair the wall. That's not a real concern. There is a lot of crap, excuse my language, coming off that tree. There's a lot of oil that comes off the tree, a lot of leaves. The oil gets on our house, so we constantly have to clean the yard and the house as well. We have awnings that are covered in oil, and it is a constant concern, like, oh, there's more oil on the house. So if there's ever going to be a wildfire, I'm not too happy about all the oil in my house. So.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right. I assume we don't have anybody online? No. Okay.
No, there's no one.
Yeah, and I'm just for the one thing, that debris is generally not considered a criterion, just which we've had that conversation before. Sorry. Commissioner Clark, and were you in this conversation? Okay. All right. Where are we? Commissioner Nielsen.
Just as a point of discussion, I think something we haven't talked about is that there's a value to trees actually being close to the street. We often talk about the risk that they pose if they were to fall, but there's a traffic calming effect, a narrowing effect for when you plant trees and have trees close to the road. It makes drivers drive more cautiously and be slow. And so there's something in my head here that there's this big, tall, imposing thing right off the adjacent side of the road, and if it were to get taken out, it would get not be able to get a replacement tree planted in the same spot. And so I think that if it didn't have a serious lien, if it didn't have a fungal, and it wasn't an immediate risk, there is some benefit to that big tree in that spot that is worth considering in my mind.
It's a skyline tree, and skyline trees have neighborhood benefits. Yeah. All right. Boom, 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 boom. We are at the stony silence stage, so we need to do something to move forward and see where we are. So, and I really, I'm just going to put it out there just so we can see where we are. I'm really, oh gosh. I came in here very, very uncomfortable about this one because it just didn't look, I don't know, leany enough for me. But, I mean, obviously, again, the committee discussed it at length, and the committee is a committee of experts. And I respect that, and I respect everybody on that committee, even though I don't always agree with them. So I am going to go ahead and make a motion to approve the removal, I can't believe I'm saying this, on the condition that a tree capable of achieving at least, a canopy tree capable of achieving at least 30 feet in high is replaced, is a replacement, and it's, I'm going to say public safety.
I will second that motion.
And let's see where we are. Okay, the motion passes. Another good discussion, guys. We're getting harder and harder ones, it seems like. All right, and that takes us to the master plan on Nepal.
Chair McGill, Commissioners, the last Street Tree Advisory Committee recommendation for review is a street tree species designation change. It's for all of Nopal Street. If you look through the application or the packet materials there, we had broken down what the old designations were, and it was very fragmented from block to block. And so that's something that we've been trying to change and rely more on a grouping of species for more of consistency, and it just makes planning and logistics a lot easier as well. So we looked at the full street in context and discussed, I think there's various areas as you travel Nopal. Some of it's like kind of densely industrial, and then as you get closer to the junior high and high school, it becomes more residential. And throughout there's varying sort of like width of parkway, so you can plant larger trees in certain areas, and then just like most of the streets we talk about, smaller trees in other areas. And then, so after discussion and review, we settled on 4 species, so the committee recommends using the Engelmann oak, the strawberry madrone, and then also the sweet bay and big leaf maple as new street tree designations for all of Nopal Street.
So the Laurus nobilis, that's the cooking bay, isn't it? Well, we know where we can go.
Chair McGill and Commissioners, so there's the sweet bay is native to like the Mediterranean. That's the one that you commonly have as bay leaves, but then all throughout like the riparian areas is the native California bay. The bay
different.
laurel, they call them, I think, commonly. So they're similar. This tree gets a lot smaller than the native California bay does.
You wouldn't want to put a California Bay in your spaghetti sauce, but this would be pretty good. Yeah. Just a question on, so are you saying the things that we commonly use, like that are there now, like the jacarandas, would no longer be designated trees? So there would be no additional jacarandas, say, planted on Opal?
Chair McGill, Commissioners, that's correct.
Yeah. All right, anybody have any additional questions? We got Commissioner Ramsey, followed by Commissioner Aldana.
Yeah, just asking the question, are these native? And any chance of spreading uncontrollably that we should be concerned about?
And Chair McGill, Commissioner Ramsey, we try pretty hard not to plant things that we know are going to spread, but, you know, as you kind of pointed out, that does happen from time to time as you experiment, you know, like some of the introductions. But the big leaf maple would be a new street tree introduction, and I would say it is native. You know, you're not going to find it immediately here, but if you get into the more deeper riparian areas, you will see it. So it's definitely a native species. And then to a similar extent to Engelmann oak is also, you know, I think increasingly sort of becoming native. Like it exists in small pockets throughout Southern California, and it's being discussed as more of like a climate-ready oak tree. So it's like we keep seeing these like migrating, warming temperatures moving north. The species becomes more and more valuable for planting in these areas. And so both of those trees would be considered native, and then the sweet bay and the madrone have long been in the landscape and have no problems.
But they're not.
It's 50-50.
Commissioner Aldana.
I believe it was a 0-100 block by Smart and Hatcher. It was a thin sidewalk, there was a fence, and then there's a little gravel area in between the sidewalk and the fence. I mean, how would the trees grow on that block? Right by Smart and Hatcher, plumbing supply.
Chair McGill, Commissioner O'Donnell, I don't know that block off the top of my head. I'd say in general, though, just as general policy, we try not to put anything in smaller than a 3-foot parkway. What you're describing probably sounds like it's just not plantable. You know, there are areas where there's parkway strip and it's just so small that it's kind of foolish to put a tree in because you know it's going to create a ton of problems. But if it's 3 feet or larger, both the strawberry madrone and the sweet bay would be small trees and perform well there.
Yeah, it was nopal in between Mason and 500, if you could picture that.
Not at this time.
Okay.
But again, I would just say, like, if it's smaller than 3 feet, we're trying not to plant it because it always leads to, there's planting something and hoping for no hardscape disruptions if it's, say, a 6-foot parkway, but then if you plant it in an 18-inch parkway and it's a woody tree, you know it's going to create problems, and we just simply avoid that.
Got it.
Thank you. All right, Commissioner Nielsen.
Mr. Slack, does that tend to be the limiting factor for what trees we choose? Is the size of parkway, or is it the proximity of the parkway to the structures? What are some of the factors when you're got a bunch of trees you could choose from that limit your choices?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Nielsen, I'd say all of the above for sure. You know, I think that you can prune to manage canopy spread. So if you don't have a setback and you've got tall buildings, that could be managed. You try to choose things that are more upright. So I think that we're looking at all of those, and then I think at the core of it, we're trying to choose the tree that's going to get the largest functionally in the area that's available to us. So, in a 3-foot parkway, your choices are limited. We tend to go to the same 6 or 8 species because there's just not a lot of trees that don't get too big for that size. But then if you have an 8-foot parkway, you have tons more options, and you can really kind of push the limits on the size of tree you're planting and get a much larger canopy. So those are all considerations. And then like we've talked about too, a lot of these species are either low or very low water use. So that way in the future when there's developments that it satisfies the, the city's water use ordinance.
And on Nepal, there is some unique bubble outs where there's some speed bumps up by the high school. Does that provide opportunities for larger or different trees with, the Public Works Department making choices like that? And then similarly, there's some parts of at least nearby streets, maybe not on that street, where it has like the stormwater detention cut out in the curb. How do those Public Works features affect the trees we choose?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Nielsen, the sort of like curb extensions that are in the upper section of Nopal, those are traffic calming devices, and traffic engineering's really great, and they're very pro-tree. So when we can, we plant trees in those locations. I think they're only 4 feet in width, so they don't support a massive tree, but they do support trees, and you can see them on Nopal. If you drive Alisos, that parallels Milpas, there's several down through there as well. And the reason why is because you have this curb and gutter thing in the middle of the road, right? And as you highlighted earlier, like street trees have a profound impact of like narrowing and calming, and they're seen as a critical component even in the traffic engineering world. And so those chevrons or curb cuts or curb extensions, I mean, whatever you want to call them, they don't work nearly as well without that vertical element, the tree. So we're constantly looking to plant trees in those locations. The stormwater thing with the curb cuts, that's different. I think that's a much bigger kind of conversation. There's a lot of different ways of trying to get stormwater into parkways. It can be really like, they can cohabitate well, but it can be, difficult for street trees and stormwater. So it's just a kind of a complicated answer, and we don't do a lot of retrofit currently for parkways because for stormwater, because you have to lower the grade, then it becomes like kind of a tripping issue, and it's just really complicated. But for the curb extensions, we're always looking to put new street trees in there.
Thank you, Mr. Slack.
Okay, Commissioner O'Donnell.
Okay, so basically all the trees are going to be removed and these 4 will be replaced. Be replacing all of them, so the existing magnolia trees, jacarandas, palm trees, everything's coming out?
Chair McGill, Commissioner Aldana, no. So all we're doing is, these are like planning efforts to determine the new trees that will be planted. So street trees, our goal is preservation, so all of the existing street trees will be preserved in place until at such time they may require removal. If they're dead, we would take them out. And really the catalyst for this designation review is in the 800, 900, and 1,000 blocks. We identified them early this year as replanting efforts. So some of the replants that are happening this fiscal year will be within those blocks, and we'll utilize these 4 new species. But all of the existing trees, there's a myriad of interesting species along Nopal, will continue to be maintained by the department.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, I think we're at the point, I assume there's no speakers here, obviously. Anything online? No, okay. I think we are maybe at the point where we can get a motion. Do we have, would somebody care to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
Okie dokie.
Hopefully it's properly. Make a motion to agree with the Street Tree Committee to modify the existing designation to Nopal Street to the following 4 street tree species, which one is the Engelmann oak, the second one is a big leaf maple, then the sweet bay, and the strawberry madrone.
Okay, we have a motion.
I'll second that motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Assuming no further discussion, we will go to a vote. All right, and the motion passes. Thank you very much. Thanks, you, Mr. Slack. Oh, go far away. Okay. And that takes us to the, thank you, and happy holidays. To the director's report.
Chair and Commissioners, I have one item I'd like to share, and that is that early in the start of our new year, we will be doing our annual Rose Pruning Day at the Mission Historical Park at the AC Postal Rose Garden, Memorial Rose Garden at Mission Historical Park. So that's at 9 a.m. It's a 3-hour event, and you can drop in at any time, but we tend to luckily get a lot of volunteers, and so it's best to come early. Anyone is welcome, and the Rose Society, along with our Dan Bufano, who's I cannot pronounce it, but a rose specialist, will be on site to demonstrate proper pruning techniques. The master gardeners will be there to help clean and sharpen any garden tools that people bring, and it's a really fun event to get to come out and do something outside at the start of the new year. So anyone is welcome to come. You don't need to come with any gear, but it's very helpful to come with garden gloves and pruning shears if you have them. And come at noon, or sorry, come at 9.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah, sounds like fun. All right, well, that takes care of the director's, okay, now we're going to start with Nielsen, then Aldana, then Clark. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah. In the event that there is a rain, how many days in advance do we make that call and notify the public that the date is changing from the 10th to the 17th?
Chair and Commissioners, that's a good question, and it depends a little bit on the rainstorm. So if we have a good sense, 5 days ahead that there's a significant storm coming, we'll cancel it as early as possible. So I guess the answer is as early as possible, but potentially it could be canceled the day before. And if it is canceled for rain, the event moves to the next Saturday, so January 17th.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Aldana.
As far as the clippings, can volunteers take a few clippings? And
Chair and Commissioners, yes, essentially that becomes green waste. And so, if there's something in the pile that looks like it's just going to be tossed into the green waste bin,
yeah, because then they can experiment, try to regrow.
Sure. We do try to encourage that people do not take items from our parks in general,
Right.
so I wouldn't recommend it on a normal day.
Got it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So that takes us to a decision we have to make, because it takes us to the final interview for the Golf Advisory Committee, which is the Women's Club, which is Sherry Dean, who is not here.
Chair and Commissioners, I received a message that she had a urgent personal matter come up this afternoon.
Okay.
So, and may I recommend that we consider moving this item to January?
I'm happy to go with the recommendation to move it to January. Commissioner Price.
I may not be here in January, but I worked with Sherry Dean on the commission, and I found her to be engaged, personable. She's awesome. Highly recommend. So I hope you consider her when her name comes up.
I mean, can we go ahead and appoint her without an interview? Is that something we can do, or?
I believe we cannot.
Okay, well then we'll just take it to January. All right, in which case, we are adjourned, and I hope everybody has a wonderful holiday. See everybody back in January.